Whee! I'm free! Free as the wind! Ha ha ha! Oh, this is so much fun! Wow, Catherine, I can't believe that your parents actually have their own cruise ship. This thing is huge. Please, you should see my parents' space resort. Still, this thing is huge. I still don't get why my dad is so afraid of the ocean. Well, I don't really blame him. I mean, there's lots of stuff down here to be afraid of, you know? I mean, have you ever seen a school of jellyfish? Those things are vicious. Wait, I know that voice. Uncle Lamney! Garrett! Oh, how you been? Oh, it's been so long. I am so sorry I missed your high school graduation. The currents were rough that week. That shark is your uncle? Ah, yes. You see, lass, I got tired of living on land, so I planted my brain and vocal cords into the body of a great white shark, and I love it. Oh, the ocean is so much more free than on land. I don't get what that stupid mermaid was always talking about. It is indeed better when it's wetter. Ha ha ha. Mr. G, have I ever told you that your family is weird? So what brings you around these parts, lad? Well, I was just about to make a video about great white sharks, as a matter of fact, and maybe you could be the host? I can't do that. Despite being in a shark's body, I actually know very little about sharks. Oh, that's okay. It's just great to see you again. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Monsters of the Deep. As always, I'm your host, Mr. G. Today, we're talking about probably the most famous sea predator of them all. It's the star of many a movie. It's the one and only great white shark. The great white Carcharodon carcharodus is a fish. It's a carnivore. It was described in 1758, and it's found throughout the oceans of the world. Before we begin, does anyone else find the great white image that Wikipedia uses to look creepy? I mean, I don't know why. I'm not afraid of the ocean or great whites or sharks in general, but there's just something about this image that really seems off. I don't know what it is, but it just kind of gives me the chills whenever I look at it. Anyway, enough ranting. Great whites look exactly what you think of when you think of a shark. They have the shape, the color, the size, even the trademark black beady eyes. Now, the name great white is a very, very, very fitting one, since the great part of their name refers to their size rather than any sort of, adjective. It uses the old sense of great rather than the new sense of great, Males tend to be around 10 or 13 feet long. With females being bigger, they can sometimes reach lengths up to 16 feet long, and sometimes, although rarely spotted, great whites can be as big as 20 feet long. Because of this fact, they're often considered to be the biggest hunting fish. Yes, the oarfish is technically longer, but the great white's more massive. And the whale and basking shark are bigger and longer, but they're krill eaters, so they don't really count as active predators. Speaking of predation, great whites are pretty much apex predators, being capable of eating whatever swims in the ocean. Although as adults, they prefer to eat things like dolphins or seals due to their high blubber contents. Now, despite being apex predators, they're not invincible. They can get ganged up on by dolphins and get beaten to death if not careful. And of course there's orcas, because orcas are dead set on exterminating every other single marine predator so they can reign supreme. I'm telling you, I'll be proven right one day, just you wait. Great whites actually seem to be afraid of orcas, which makes sense. In fact, studies have shown that great whites will straight up leave an area if they detect orcas are anywhere near it. Let's get into some other great white facts that I couldn't really find any other good place to talk about. Number 1. Unlike most fish, great whites are actually warm-blooded, meaning they can control their body temperatures. Number 2. Great whites in South Africa have an unusual behavior not observed anywhere else. Off the coast of South Africa, great whites will leap out of the water to grab seals, kind of like how a whale breaches out of the water. No one is quite sure why this only happens in South Africa, but that's definitely something interesting. Number 3. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there's a spot known as the Great White Cafe. It got this name due to the high amount of great whites that travel through that area. To this day, no one is quite sure why this area is so popular. And number 4. Despite mostly being solitary animals, great whites actually are pretty tolerant of each other in scenarios where there's a lot of sharks. In fact, they even seem to have hierarchies based on size and strength. Now, it should be noted that this is not pack hunting, so it's less like lions and more like... Okay, I can't think of a good analogy there. Okay, let's move right along to the cards. Okay, of this card, one error I noticed right away is that it says their length can be up to 27 feet long, which is way, way bigger than their average size. In fact, we have literally never seen a great white more than 20 feet long. So yeah, that's an error right there. Secondly, it lists humans as a prey item. Now, granted, it does say occasionally, but the fact they put humans there makes it sound like great whites go out of the way to eat humans, which they really don't. Thirdly, this one is kind of more debatable though. It brings up the idea that great whites can smell blood from over a half-mile away. Now, the thing about this is kind of over-exaggerated. Yes, great whites and other sharks do have the great sense of smell when it comes to blood in the water, but it's not as far as most people will tell you. It's closer more to a quarter of a mile rather than a half or a full mile, as you might have heard. It's kind of a complicated subject to talk about, so yeah. This card gets a 7 out of 10. Fair warning, the human relations section will get a bit, sad. So if you want to leave, you can. Speaking of, oh boy, great whites and humans. While I still think piranhas have the most unfair reputation of any aquatic animal, great whites are definitely a close second. And actually no, not just great whites. Sharks in general have a terrible reputation. The way people think of sharks seem to be, they are these evil fish that want to devour anyone who sets foot in the beach. This is far from the truth. Well, yes, shark attacks have definitely happened. I am not denying that. And yeah, shark attacks can be pretty gruesome when they do happen. Shark attacks are not any more common than most other animals. In fact, in general, they tend to be rarer than most animal attacks. People have been killed more by dogs, pigs, and hippos than they have by sharks. But sharks are the ones with the bad reputation. You never see hippo attack movies, now do you? Not helping with people's fear of sharks is that every single time there's a shark attack, it's treated like an international incident. I am not kidding. Has anyone else ever noticed this? Every time a shark attack happens, no matter where, it seems to be broadcast on every single news station in the world. You never see that kind of thing happen if lion attacks in the wild, or tiger attacks, or alligator attacks. Those only make the news if it was in a zoo or something. But no matter where a shark attacks someone, it's considered international news. And every time there's more than one shark attack in a month, it seems like the news thinks there's an epidemic of shark attacks going around. And this has definitely not helped people's fear of sharks. So, why do sharks have such a bad reputation? Well, I'm sure most marine biologists could tell you, but for those who don't know, let's talk about it. In 1976, author Peter Benchley wrote a novel about a shark who attacks a small island town. A year later, it was turned into a movie that most people know as Jaws, and this movie ended up blowing up big time. And it planted the idea of sharks as evil fish into the public conscience. It even got to the point where the original author has gone on record saying that he's kind of ashamed of writing the book since he feels personally responsible for the unfair reputation sharks have. And in the last years of his life, he was very big on shark conservation. Now look, Jaws is a great movie. It's considered one of the best movies of all time for a reason. But the impact it's had on sharks has been incredibly bad. Now, while yes, a lot of the reasons sharks are endangered have nothing to do with fear, like finning for soup or sport fishing, it has definitely not helped people want to protect them. After all, why should they care? Sharks are just these dangerous animals that want to destroy our beautiful beach time, aren't they? Who cares if they go extinct? The dolphins can just eat all the fish. Isn't that right? Who cares about those stupid sharks? How dare they attack us when we're at the beach? That is our beach. We humans deserve the right to those beaches, don't we? People just don't care about sharks. It genuinely feels like there are people out there who would be happy if sharks were gone. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let's just try to get through this. Okay, let's try to talk more positive, or at least less negative. Great whites are borderline impossible to keep in captivity, mostly because tank walls mess with their electrical sensors, causing them to bump into walls a lot, and also because it's hard to fill the dietary recommendations of an adult great white. In fact, very few aquariums have managed to keep a great white for more than a few months, with most of them dying. So far, the Monterey Bay Aquarium is the only one that's had consistent success stories, and even then, they tend to release them before they become adults. Let's see, other positive things. Yeah, I don't really have any other positive things to say. And even then, that wasn't a very positive thing. That was kind of negative. Yeah, human views on sharks, they're not good, as you probably could tell from how I've been talking in this segment. This is a genuinely hard segment to get through. But yeah, sharks, no matter what they appear in, be it a film, video game, comic book, they're always portrayed as evil, bloodthirsty killers. But I have hope. I feel like what we need in media is a good balance. Not exactly Jaws level, but also not at the same level as Baby Shark that portrays them as completely harmless creatures. I think what we need is a piece of media that gives us a nice balance, showing us that sharks are not incredibly dangerous killing machines, but at the same time they should still be respected like every other carnivorous animal. I wish I knew of a media that did that, though, because it always seems like it's one extreme with sharks. You know, when I was in 6th grade, I remember this kid who told me that when he grew up he wanted to be a professional shark hunter because he watched a movie about a shark who tore off a girl's arm, and he hated sharks ever since, calling them evil creatures who so cruelly ripped off that girl's arm. Well, that's all for this episode of Monsters of the Deep. Hopefully next time we'll talk about an animal with a good reputation. Bye.